go ahead and get started with our presentation. At this time, if I could please ask for the message about interpretation.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I will give this announcement regarding language interpretation in both English and Spanish. Buenas tardes. Voy a dar este anuncio sobre la interpretación en inglés y en español. In order to provide language access, we will be providing simultaneous bidirectional interpretation in English and Spanish. If you are bilingual, you do not have to click anything. If you are not bilingual in English and Spanish, you will have to select your language in order to hear the interpretation. If you are using a laptop or a desktop, at the bottom right of your screen, you will see a globe icon that says interpretation. Please click on the globe now and select English. If you are using an iPad or a phone, locate the three-dot menu and select language interpretation, then select English and click done. And when it's your turn to speak, please remember to be loud and clear and speak at a moderate pace. Buenas tardes, esta reunión contará con interpretación simultánea bidireccional en inglés y en español. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada. Si usted no es bilingüe, tendrá que elegir su idioma para escuchar la interpretación. Si está usando una computadora, verá un icono en la parte inferior de su pantalla a la derecha en forma de globo que dice interpretación. Haga clic ahí ahora y seleccione español. Si está usando un iPad o su teléfono, localice el menú de 3 puntos, haga clic en interpretación de idiomas, elija español y finalizar. O si está en inglés, dice done. Y cuando sea su turno de hablar, por favor recuerde hablar con voz fuerte y clara y a un paso moderado. Gracias. Thank you. We may now begin.
Thank you very much. Welcome, families. My name is Kenya Edison. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us for a quick webinar to discuss our Off and Away campaign. My contact information is at the end of this presentation, so feel free to take a picture of that slide and reach out to me if you'd like to participate in our Technology Use Committee, or if you have any questions or comments regarding our technology use campaign. So Off and Away is the name of our campaign that we're using in our district to teach the expected behaviors for our students. I first want to highlight the work that we have committed to doing with your children, our students, to ensure that our students are successful. The major work that requires all of us to support is the relationship in the center of the circle that's on your screen. And that's the relationship between students, teachers, and content and standards. We want to make sure that students are showing up and engaging in a learning environment that's been prepared for them and accessing the high quality instruction that we are working to support. So we know technology sometimes interferes with that. And so we need to partner with you as families to help us remind our young people that Off and Away is a campaign, which means when you enter the learning zones, we want to make sure that their phones are off so that they can access instruction. As a district, we focused our work around student-centered goals. The work with the technology use really falls under that 4th bullet point, which is increasing equitable responses to our students' academic behavior and wellness needs. We understand that technology is a wellness issue, not necessarily a discipline issue. Our young people have been in a world where they've always had technology and they have become overly dependent on it, and we want to give them opportunity to break away from that. So everything that we do will be focused in the work that we've all signed up for. I want to let you know the Technology Use Committee has been meeting, and the purpose that they've set aside is really to review our policies, practices, and data and make recommendations around access to academic standards and content. We do know technology can bridge gaps with access for our students and take them outside of not only their zip codes, but even their city and their state and the country, because we do know the use of technology can be beneficial. We just want to make sure that it's appropriate when being used. We also want to teach and reinforce the social emotional learning competencies for young people. We say digital citizenship because yes, we want to teach them how to engage on technology, but the reality is those competencies are self-awareness, self-management, how do they interact with their peers? So that social interaction, relationship building skills, and then at the end, we want them to make responsible decisions. But our campaign, as you know, it teaches them to manage themselves so the adults do not need to manage them. So thank you so much for partnering with us to make sure that our young people know the expectation and meet it. We're also supporting mental, physical and mental wellness, the technology committee. We understand that addictive quality of technology. So we want to make sure that as we communicate with our families, we understand that sometimes students use technology to escape. So the work of the technology use committee is wide, but our first project was the Off and Away campaign, right? So the work they committed to is this on the board, on your screen. So if you're interested in serving in the committee and giving recommendations around these 3 bullet points that really can support the access that students have to quality instruction, by all means, again, my contact information is on the last slide. The Technology Committee has a vision statement. It started off with the one on the left of your screen, and they really fine-tuned it to meet the needs of the district with considering our students. And that is technology used in a balanced and responsible way will enhance learning and build connections for all members of the Santa Barbara Unified community. So you are a part of that membership. So we want to use technology to communicate with you. We're using it tonight to show this PowerPoint and to answer questions. So when it's used in a balanced and responsible way, it is important to help balance all of the addictive the addictive traits of technology. So that's what we want to teach our young people. I do want to just give a brief update. As a district, we've adopted as a theory of change. How are we going to create a more equitable system? We've adopted the MTSS framework. That's multi-tiered system of support. We have committed to building one system serving the needs of all kids. So even with talking about technology use, we use this framework and highlighted some of the practices that we use. We use data to guide the decision about the campaign. We're taking this opportunity to provide information to families. We're taking the opportunity to get feedback from staff and students. We have a survey that's out where students can comment on if they believe that the Off and Away campaign is clear, to self-report how much they use their cell phone in the classrooms, so that when we make decisions, it's not I think, I feel, I hope, I wish, but we're really using this framework of multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, to guide those decisions. And we'll review the data as we're implementing our Off and Away campaign. You'll hear the term MTSS mentioned a lot as you're attending back to school nights or you're talking with teachers, because we really want to link all of our initiatives to support what's happening in the middle of that circle, which is the interaction between teacher, student, content, and standards. When we talk about mental and physical wellness, we know when students are on their phones for extended parts of the day, they're not engaging with their peers out in a friendly way. They're not out playing. They really are tugged into the techno world. So the CDC has released stats that says students between the ages of 8 and 10 on average are on technology devices for 6 hours a day. Our middle school students, it's 9 hours a day. And for our high school students, it's 7.5 hours a day. So we want to make sure every opportunity we have to minimize and reduce access to technology, particularly in the learning zones on campus, the classrooms where the magic is happening, that we partner and make sure we teach that for our students and hold that expectation. On the campuses, if you've been to open house, you may have seen these posters around, and what they are telling our students is any device, right? If it's a cell phone, if it's earpods, smartwatches, that we're expecting them to be off and put away during the instructional time in the learning zones. Schools have identified what their learning zones are, where students are engaged in any type of learning, right? So that's the classroom. For the elementary students, it may also be the playground because they're learning social skills and how to interact with one another, how to resolve conflict. So the QR code on the screen is actually the link to the survey. We currently have about 200 students and staff who have replied to the survey, telling us what they think about the campaign, and self-reporting how often they use their cell phones in the classrooms. So we do want to make sure this process is fair and that we have a balanced voice. And so we'll extend and have that survey available for the remainder of the month. I do want you to know there is an exception. If students require their cell phones for health reasons, there is an exception for having access to their phones. It's important that we communicate to the school side, either the teacher or the principal, to let them know that there is a health reason for the students to need their phone out, so that we're all not only all aware of it, but we also can support the student and their health needs. If it is not a health concern, the expectation is phones are off and away in the learning zones. We've kind of opened this campaign knowing that we are planning implementation through phases. Our first phase is really to promote the campaign, share the expectations. We want to be fair to our students and not just drop something on them, but really front load them with what that expectation is, get them comfortable with it, remind them as we go through, get feedback, because we want to make sure, again, like I said, that it's a balanced voice and that we're using those MTSS, multi-tiered system of support principles, in making the decisions for this campaign, which is using data to guide decisions and giving opportunities for all staff to contribute and provide feedback, communicating with families, so providing that information for families so that we're very transparent in what off and away is. We will continue our next phase, and it will be a communication plan. The Technology Use Committee right now is working on making recommendations for appropriate responses when students are not off and away with their technology. After those decisions have been, the recommendations have been made, we will do the same thing. We'll vet it out. We'll get feedback from community on what we think those recommendations are. And then we will communicate that to families. Again, we are partnering in educating our students, your children. So thank you so much in advance for helping remind them of the expectations, not phoning or calling them during the school day, calling the main office so that we can make sure we protect that learning zone. We as a district have committed to equitable responses to student behaviors or decisions. So we're going to make sure they're age appropriate, ability appropriate, and that it is in response to the behavior. We're going to engage with our students, families, and staff about those recommendations. So please stay tuned for that. In our last phase, which really falls in second semester, we're going to implement our plan and we're going to progress monitor. Progress monitoring is an MTSS practice. Not only will we implement something, but we'll constantly revisit it to make sure we're getting the results that we want. And if we need to tweak based on data and feedback, we'll do that. We'll also celebrate the successes where we currently are having teachers saying it made the world of difference that students had their phones off. Principal reported that she walked in the office and instead of kids being on the phone in the office, a student was reading a book. So it is having a positive impact on our school community. And we will continue to identify and remove barriers to students accessing their instruction. I really appreciate you being here tonight. This was obviously a very quick webinar just to make sure that everyone understands what Off and Away is and to give you an opportunity to ask questions or provide feedback that will also be shared with the Technology Use Committee as well as other stakeholders. Are there any questions at this time?
Ms. Edison, I do not see any questions yet.
Okay, thank you so much. I will hang on and wait and provide opportunity for that. And we do have our superintendent in this space this evening. And I would ask, is there anything you would like to add, Dr. Maldonado?
Thank you so much, Ms. Edison. No, I just want to invite the parents that are on. Feel free to ask any questions you may have. You can just, are they able to unmute? I'm not sure how the webinar works. Do they have to write it in the chat?
There is an icon at the bottom that they could raise their hand and then I would be able to unmute them.
Okay, or they can write in the chat. So please don't be shy. Raise your hand if you want to ask us questions, or send your question in the chat. Or just send us an email if you want to hear more information.
Thank you.
We have some good wait time, Ms. Edison.
No rush. If there aren't any questions, I thank you so much for again taking time out of your busy evening for participating. I would ask that you would have a conversation with friends and neighbors about what Off and Away is to help us get the message out about the campaign. And we have an open door policy. You can always stop by and have a conversation or take down my contact information and shoot an email. So thank you so much for attending. Have a good evening.